Oh, and mine 10 jellyfish. Welcome back to Knives, I guess. And there are 9 sandwiches in my underwear. 5 of them are named Ricky. But do me a favor and hit that like button, or I'll put one of those sandwiches in your car. And during our last live stream, we took a little bit of time to go in on the Kershaw Misdirect. So let's take a look at what we're holding, because it'll bother you if I don't, and you know I spoil you. So first things first, and most importantly, the pocket clip is tip up, which is the Lord's carry. We have got a frame lock, and this is some steel right here, some kind of stainless. We got a flipper tab. Let's flick the bean. And we got 2.9 inches of 4CR13 steel. Now, you might be asking yourself, how much would I be out of pocket for such a stellar value for that 4CR14, that sweet, sweet 4CR13? My apologies. But $27.76. We'll get into why this is such a big problem for me in a little bit here. But so we did the live stream and we went in on it, and just if you don't know and you haven't been here, when we're doing the live stream, we see how long it takes cardboard to completely wreck the edge on this, and we go to complete edge devastation. You know, we're not cutting until we get the first little snag on it. We are cutting until it is devastated. And we use the amount of time spent cutting, because counting every single cut is totally unmanageable, and we still get really, really consistent, repeatable results. Okay, so like this is a good metric for us. It tells us what we need to know, and it's a good way of comparing the steels to each other. Not the same way everyone else does it, but it works. So now that that's out of the way, we started in on this thing, and I checked the edge. I stropped it a little bit because this is an older knife, and we hit a 246 on the tester. While we were doing that, and I was checking the edge to begin with, I was doing the cut on the copy paper just to see how clean it was and see if I needed to strop it or not before we did the testing on it. Or before we did the test on the edge. I found a rolled spot. I found a rolled spot right here where I'm touching, where it's making contact with the spacer right here. There's a cut in the spacer, and that was a pretty big roll on the edge. Not happy at all with that. You know, it's again for damn near $30, and in the current environment and where knives are today, that ain't acceptable, especially from a company like Kershaw, where they project the idea of the quality even though it's not really there. But yeah, this is bad. So we went in on this thing, and I stropped it. We skipped past the roll and the edge, which let's see if I can get this on camera. So right there between my index and ring finger, you can kind of see that a little bit where it's not glinting right. That's where that roll is. I was so unhappy with that, but we rolled with it. And we started at a 246. All right. It went for 45 minutes. 45 minutes. And so the cut started turning into garbage. It was rolling and tearing the cardboard, not cutting it anymore. And right up here in the belly and the tip area, we pulled a 486, which is pretty bad. It's not totally devastated. But then we moved back just a little bit to right about here. Right before we hit that rolled spot, 612. Anything over 600 is devastated and needs to be sharpened. All right, that is terrible, terrible performance. Now, it is exactly the right performance for 4CR13, but just to give you a frame of reference, all right, 8CR13 will do 2.5 hours like clockwork. We have done so much 8CR13. Barring a bad edge on it, it'll do 2.5 hours on a factory edge. I think they're around 20 degrees. Like clockwork. If I put that to 18 degrees per side with a polished bevel on it, it'll do about 3.5 hours. 9CR18 will do around 3.5 hours. We can push that out to around 4, maybe a little bit longer with a new edge, the way I like them sharpened. D2 will do 4 hours on that factory edge around the 20 degree mark. If I do that 17 degrees per side with a highly polished bevel, it pretty much always gets extended out to about 5 hours. We've done a lot of this. We know how these things wear out. So that was exactly what 4CR14 was supposed to do, but that is terrible, terrible edge retention. And I don't like these steels, but I will say, let me get this out of the way right now. There are tons and tons and tons of people that will buy these. They will enjoy them. They'll carry them, be perfectly happy with them for years. All right, this is where a little bit of snobbery comes in. When you get off of the mainstream stuff they sell at Walmart, the Kershaws, the Gerbers, stuff like that, the automatic defaults for guys that aren't knife guys that they buy, you start getting into nicer stuff from all kinds of random companies, and you see what's possible. Then you look at this stuff and you're just like, ew, gross. So, I had to throw that out there because there are a lot of guys, hey, I like my Kershaw, it's treated me fine for years, and that is great. That is great. I am legitimately happy for you. I could carry this for a while and not need to sharpen it, and outside of a couple of major problems I have with this design, I'd be fine in the environment I'm in, but I have gotten used to so much better for less money. Now, the other really big problem I have besides this making contact with the spacer right here is trying to close this thing. So the steel on this is about as slick as snot on a doorknob. It is slick as hail. You go to try to close it one-handed, and either you grip it so hard that your finger's kind of in harm's way and it's scary, or you back off a little bit and it starts pushing out of your hand because the spring that doesn't need to be here on something like this doesn't want to close. Now you can two-hand close this easily enough. You can hold it like this and push it shut right here. But, given how I normally close liner locks and frame locks with a flipper tab, trying to go off muscle memory on that, I don't like it. I forced myself to get used to it a couple of years ago when I carried this thing for a little while, but yeah, I genuinely don't like that at all. It has no business with an assisted open. This just needs a decent detent and ball bearings, and it would be just fine. That would be a non-issue, but I'm trying to close it, and it's just pushing itself out of my hand. I really, really don't like that at all. So, and that's the thing is Kershaw and Gerber, they're both really bad about, designs that are incredibly underwhelming for guys, for guys like me that have handled a lot of stuff and know what's out there. And there's going to be some issues. Like Gerber, the build quality on some of their budget stuff has been garbage. Kershaw has a massive hard-on for 4CR14 and 4CR13. They just won't back off of that. And stuff like that is where it's maybe 10, 12 years ago, that would have been perfectly acceptable and would justify the price, or at least something close to the price maybe. But as better steels have gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, it ain't gonna fly no more, Chief. They need to update what they're doing, because with the overall quality of the build and how well it's put together and how nice it feels in hand, aside from the slippery scales, with good steel and on ball bearings with a good detent, I would be delighted with this. Move it up to $35, give it D2, put it on bearings. I'd actually be quite happy with this thing, but it's got some things that are definitely wrong with it, and I don't like them, And so, and I will say, I didn't get much time on the ergonomics. That 45 minutes was excruciating after doing a different knife beforehand. That being said, it didn't seem to be too much more painful than before that. The ergonomics were as good as they could be for something like this. At least in the channel right here, in between the scales or the frame, whatever you want to call it, it's got the slightest chamfer. There's that $5 word. It's got the slightest chamfer, and it does take some of the pain out of this part of my hand right here. The callus has gotten kind of soft. You might be able to see it, maybe. But the callus has gotten a little bit soft because we had a lot of knives that I spent more time sharpening than I did cutting with over the last month and a half here. But, and here's the thing. You can do so much better for so much cheaper. I have got some examples to compare this thing to just so you get an idea of just what I'm talking about. This is part of the conversation I've had with guys where they don't see why I have such a big issue with the budget Kershaws, but you can do so much better for way cheaper. So, one of the first things that we have here is going to be the Ozark Trail Storm Pooper. This is a $5 knife. Now, granted, it was a limited run. These were only in the store for the Christmas holidays, and they, when they're sold out, they're gone. They're not coming back. But, this thing did the same 45 minutes on its factory edge in 3CR13 steel, but your build quality is arguably as good or better. You got an axis lock, you got it on bearings. These things are good to carry. They are enjoyable toys. I could carry this for a long time. I'd be very, very happy with the design. If they did this thing in D2, oh my God, I would have such a massive hard-on for it, a raging hard-on. This cost $5. Now, I committed the cardinal sin of the Ozark Trail axis locks. I bought this one on eBay because I couldn't find them in store fast enough to get my videos done. Different story entirely. I still feel kind of unclean. There aren't enough showers in the world. But, we got another example of this mossy oak right here. Again, axis lock. And this was part of a 7-knife set. A 7-knife set that still cost less than this did by a couple of dollars. You got the axis lock. You got the 3CR steel that performed exactly the same as this does, but you got 7 of them for the same price. And granted, like, these aren't the best knives, but the build quality is good enough. The build quality is reasonably comparable to this thing. You know, the axis lock feels good, and I managed to bearing swap this one, so I have the only bearing swap mossy oak axis lock on the planet, I'd be entirely sure. So, I mean, you got these guys right here, and this already tells you where my problem is with this. But if you want to go to $10, you get the Harbor Freight Gordon Flipper right here. This is an 8CR steel. It's on bearings. The pocket clip is 4 positions. Now, this is a very, very generic, underwhelming looking knife, but it's a performer. It's a performer. Like, I have done quite a bit of testing on this, and it did what 8CR13 does. It did its 2.5 hours on the factory edge, about 3.5 hours on the new edge that I put on it, and that's, again, 18 degrees per side. I got that bevel nice and polished, just like I like them. You know, you've got, say, the Crescent CPK 350 here. The build quality on this is phenomenal. The design is great. It's like, it's nice. It fills the hand up. Everything is really comfortable on it. The gap here is kind of wide, so that's not fun for extended push cuts. Like, if you're doing a ton of push cuts, it's going to be uncomfortable. But you get 5CR15 steel, and this is like $13. $13 for this thing when you can find them on Amazon. They may have gone up $1 or $2, but still. 5CR15 as opposed to 4CR, which the 5CR15 does a little bit longer than the 4CR does, but you get so much better build quality. You're on bearings. Everything on it looks a lot nicer. I like the red accents on the spacers back here. I genuinely like this knife quite a bit. I have liked it since I got it, and back when I got it, I thought the 5CR15 would be better steel than it is, but still, it's not 4CR13. The Duratech Tools knife right here, this thing was, I think, $15. You got another axis lock here. The build quality is fantastic on this one. I forget what the steel is, but I know it's better than the steel on this. It's been a long time since I've had this out and handled it. But, you know, this is one of my favorite budget finds ever. This is one of my favorite dirt cheap knives ever, because it was like $15 for this. It looks phenomenal. It works phenomenal. It carries great. It did everything I wanted it to. No problems whatsoever. This is one of my favorite budget knives I've ever found. So then you've got the Albatross Cool Flipper. This is the fancy version with what I believe is BG10 core Damascus, but the poverty spec version of this in black with a 3CR13 blade, $16. All right, $16 for this with a 3CR13 blade, which again, same thing here, performs exactly the same as the 4CR13. We got the same performance out of it, no issues. And this thing did pretty good on Cardboard Slayer, if memory serves. It's been a while since I did this one, and I don't exactly remember. But this is also one of my favorite budget finds. This one cost, I think, around $35, but I had to have the Damascus. You can get the poverty spec version again for $16. And kind of the piece du jour, the piece de resistance of this whole thing right here, the Civivi Zizzle. All right, this was part of a $25 gift set, which means it came with a couple of accoutrements for $25. There are still a couple on Walmart.com when I checked to make sure I remembered what the price was. But for that $25, you're getting a knife that, you got Civivi's build quality. Let's flick the bean. You got Civivi's build quality. You got nearly the exact same dimensions on this. Let's flick this bean. So you've got like nearly the same blade length. You've got roughly the same size on the handle. You got a wider blade here with a nicer looking grind, in my opinion. But D2 steel. All right, D2 steel. And the D2 is good D2. We tested that out. It performed exactly like D2 should. And you're getting it for cheaper than this. Okay, so this is what I mean when I say you can do so much better for so much cheaper. You get into the same price range, you start getting into D2, you get into better steels, better build quality, better overall designs. And this has kind of been consistent with the budget Kershaws I've handled. Now, I haven't handled the nicer Kershaws, the more premium ones, and part of that is I see such mixed reviews. Like, I'll see reviews where guys get some of these things and they look really nice and they command a higher price tag, $100 plus. And they have so much underwhelming things that they find about it when they get it. And then some guys say they're great. You know, it's kind of a mixed bag. That's just like Gerber. I saw the Sedulo. I really, really liked what I was seeing there. And I was thinking about getting one just to see, you know, do I still have the same complaints with a higher end Gerber than I do with the budget stuff like the Quadrant and things like that I bought that, no, those are trash. Those are worse than this. But I saw the Sedulo being handled a couple times. It's like, I do not like the way that action looks, especially not at that price. Oh boy. So, that's where my problems with like Kershaw and Gerber come in. It's just And a lot of guys will say CRKT is just as bad, but the CRKTs I've had, I like a hell of a lot more than I like the budget Kershaws that I've had by a wide margin. Either the designs are better, they're more eye-catching, they got some artistic stuff going on with it that I like, and if memory serves, the blade steels are usually better than this. I could be wrong about that. They may be sticking with the 4CR14. I haven't done a ton of research into it. We're just focused on the Kershaw right now. So, hopefully I've made my point and I've explained where I'm coming from with that well enough for you. It's just, and I would be way more upset about this, but I caught this and the Shuffle 2 on sale as a bundle for $28. So for the same price as this by itself, I got two, and that kind of blunts the pain a little bit. But I mean, still, this is so underwhelming. So underwhelming. The 4CR did as advertised. It did what 4CR was supposed to do. But, I mean, just the build quality issues and the design issues, they really, really stick in my craw, especially at that price. If this thing did not hit the spacer and it closed without damaging the blade, I would say this is like a $14 knife all day, every day. And again, if they did D2 with this and put it on bearings with the flipper tab instead of the assisted opener, I could see it pushing $25-$30, no problem, even tipping over into the $35 range, given that, everything about the build feels good. Like, I don't think that I'm going to have any issues with, say, it falling apart or anything. It needed to be handled different and needed to be priced different. So, I love sharing with you guys what happened during our Cardboard Slayer runs. That's what happened with this thing. This is an explanation of why I have such a big problem with it, especially at that price point. But, and my examples of how you can do better for less money. Some of these are easily available. Some of them are not on sale anymore. They're discontinued. But yeah, I mean, this are all still on sale. You might be able to find. There's still some of these on Walmart.com. But yeah, that is the whole schmagoigan here. Like, this is my whole point that I've been trying to make for a while, and I've been having a hard time articulating it until I figured out I could explain it with this. So, all that being said, thanks for looking at my crap. Subscribers, you guys are awesome. Y'all keep coming in. I appreciate you so much. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We have got our live streams. We got regular videos. There's plenty of activities. Comments, I love some feedback. Let me know what you think about this whole situation and how you feel about Kershaw in general. I'd love to discuss that. I will link off to Cutting Lacey DC's Diamond Emulsion if you want to step your stropping game up. Not an affiliate link. I don't get paid for it, but supporting a friend of the channel and a small business. But all that being said, y'all have a nice day.